Hey guys, welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be looking at 5 of the creepiest and strangest gravestones and burial sites around the world, and I will tell you the story behind them. Starting at number 5, we have the Capuchin Catacombs. Beneath the busy streets of Palermo, Sicily, curious visitors descend into the Capuchin Catacombs to walk among the dead. Since the 16th century, monks have been preserving bodies using the cool climate found in the underground space. So skillful was their technique that even some of the oldest skeletons in the catacombs still have skin and hair left on them. Throughout the catacombs, these mummified corpses hang from the walls in macabre arrangements. They are stacked on shelves, seated on benches and sealed in glass cases. The corridors and halls are divided into religious figures, virgins, children and wealthy individuals who purchase their place upon the walls. All are fully clothed and some still wearing their traditional robes. The catacomb was officially closed in 1880, though intermits continued into the early 1900s. One of the last was that of Rosalia Lombardo. Today, according to the last census held in the Capuchin Catacombs, holds 8,000 corpses and 1,252 mummies within its underground walls. If you're interested in learning more about the Capuchin Catacombs, they are open daily to the public. And at number 4 we have the glass coffin of Rosalia Lombardo, whom we just spoke about in number 5 from the Capuchin Catacombs. Inside the Capuchin Catacombs lays the body of Rosalia Lombardo, entombed for eternity inside a coffin made of glass. Devastated by the loss of his 2-year-old daughter to pneumonia in 1920, Rosalia's father turned to Alfredo Salifia, a renowned Sicilian professor of chemistry and a talented embalmer, to preserve his daughter. Her corpse was carefully mummified and encased in a glass coffin, so they would still be able to see their little daughter. Considered to be one of the best preserved mummies in the world, for years after her death, her skin retained a warm and pink complexion, giving her the eerie appearance of a sleeping peaceful girl, earning her nickname the Sleeping Beauty. In 1982, she was transferred to a special nitrogen-filled chamber to preserve her body even further. And there she resides to this day, the star attraction, but by no means is she the only mummy to call the Capuchin Catacombs home. And at number 3, we have the grave of Timothy Clark Smith. During the 18th and 19th centuries, the fear of being buried alive was rampant, and for good reason. It was well known that some very sick people were mistakenly being pronounced dead by their doctors. The phenomenon was called Lazarus syndrome, which is described as the spontaneous return of circulation after failed attempts at resuscitation. Exhumed coffins showed signs of scratch marks on the inside of the coffin lid, where people had woken in horror to find they'd been buried alive. Their bodies would be found with broken and bloody fingernails and their faces contorted with fear. Timothy Clark Smith, a doctor who died in 1893, had heard of such stories and went to great precautions to ensure that it would never happen to him. In Evergreen Cemetery in New Haven, Vermont, Smith made arrangements to have several special features built into his burial chamber. He had a bell and a long air tube that emerged close to his grave. There was a 4-foot square window that served as a lid to his deep coffin. The window was placed at ground level so people passing by could actually see his body. There was even a hidden staircase that was built underground next to his grave so that he could just walk up and out of his grave if need be. As it happened, Smith was indeed dead when he was finally placed in his custom built grave, but as the saying goes, it's better to be safe than sorry. And at number 2 we have the grave of Lily E. Gray. In the Salt Lake City Cemetery, there is a small gravestone with a strange inscription that reads, Lily E. Gray, victim of the beast 666. The bizarre inscription has inspired countless theories, but the mystery endures. What is known is that Lily Gray lived from June 6, 1881 to November 14, 1958, and according to a newspaper obituary, she died of natural causes. She passed away some years before her husband, Elmer Gray, who interestingly was later buried on the other side of the cemetery, far from his wife's plot. Elmer was well known to be a strange man with an unusual sense of humour, and that he had numerous encounters with the law. In fact, it's said he blamed the police for causing stress that led to his wife's death. Was he perhaps comparing the police to the devil? Or was he thinking he himself was the beast that drove her to an early grave? We may never know. Today the grave enjoys visits from curious tourists who often leave flowers and small trinkets for the victim of the beast, whoever or whatever that may be. And last but not least on our list at number 1, we have the grave of Kitty J, Devon, England. The grave of Kitty J has long been a part of Devon's folklore. Dating back to the late 18th century, the legend begins with a young maid who fell in love with a local farmhand. After discovering she was with child, her lover abandoned her. Falling into madness and despair, she took her own life by hanging herself in the farmer's barn. As was the custom of the time, because she had committed suicide, she could not be buried in consecrated ground. Instead, Kitty J was buried at the crossroads of 3 parishes, so that none would have to claim responsibility for her. Her grave can still be found in the middle of the intersection, complete with a small headstone and a raised mound of grass, and it's here that the legend of Kitty J continues to this day. Over the years, fresh flowers have appeared at the grave, yet no one knows who lays them. Stranger still, drivers on the country road regularly report seeing her ghost in their rearview mirror, while others sometimes see a cloaked shadow figure kneeling at the grave. Anyways guys, that's the end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed and I'll catch you in the next one.